110 degrees, a temperature that would make most of us run for the nearest air conditioner. But what if I told you there was a time and a people who not only survived these temperatures, they mastered them? While we're frantically adjusting our thermostat, Native Americans were engineering survival solutions that make our modern cooling technology look like child's play. This isn't just history. This is human survival intelligence at its absolute peak. Forget everything you think you know about staying cool. We're about to reveal survival strategies so advanced, so precise, that they'll make you question everything about modern comfort. Environmental understanding. Survival isn't about fighting the environment. It's about reading it like a complex, living map. Native Americans didn't just live in these landscapes, they decoded them. Every terrain was a survival manual, every landscape a cooling system waiting to be understood. Terrain reading. Native American tribes possessed an extraordinary understanding of ground temperature. In scorching 110-degree heat, they could identify cooler air pockets and underground water sources through subtle landscape changes. Their terrain knowledge wasn't just observation, it was a sophisticated survival technology. Shelter positioning. Their settlement strategies were pure thermal engineering. They never built directly in the sun's path. Instead, they positioned settlements to maximize natural cooling, using landscape features as heat barriers. Each location was carefully selected to create natural wind corridors and minimize heat absorption. Underground living. Pit houses represented their most brilliant cooling innovation. Buried 4 to 6 feet underground, these structures maintained a constant 55 to 65 degree temperature. Thick earth walls didn't just provide shelter, they absorbed and regulated heat with precision that modern air conditioning struggles to match. Vegetation as cooling technology. Plants weren't just decoration, they were a living, breathing cooling system. Native Americans strategically planted trees to create shade and wind tunnels. They understood how specific plant arrangements could dramatically alter local microclimate, turning vegetation into a sophisticated thermal management strategy. Their approach wasn't about fighting heat, it was about understanding and transforming it. A single tree wasn't just a tree, it was a cooling system. A landscape wasn't just terrain, it was a thermal management strategy that represented generations of accumulated ecological intelligence. Modern air conditioning is a single-purpose technology. Native American environmental understanding? That was a living, breathing survival algorithm that turned extreme heat into a manageable, even comfortable experience. Clothing technology. Native American clothing wasn't just fabric. It was a sophisticated thermal defense system engineered through generations of environmental adaptation. Fabric and material science. Every thread, every weave was a calculated response to temperature. They didn't just choose materials, they designed thermal armor. Lightweight, loose-fitting clothing wasn't a fashion choice. It was survival engineering. Natural fibers like cotton, hemp, and animal hides weren't random selections. They were carefully chosen for specific thermal properties. Loose weaves allowed air circulation, creating a personal cooling system that moved with the body. The clothing didn't just cover you, it actively managed your body's temperature. Color and fabric psychology. Color wasn't just aesthetic, it was a thermal strategy. Lighter colors reflected sunlight, while specific natural dyes could increase or decrease heat absorption. They understood that what you wear is as important as how you wear it. Moisture management. Their clothing was a living, breathing technology. Fabrics were designed to absorb sweat quickly, allowing rapid evaporation. This wasn't just comfort, it was a critical cooling mechanism. As sweat evaporated, it created a natural cooling effect, dropping body temperature more effectively than any modern moisture-wicking fabric. Headwear as cooling mechanism. Headwear was perhaps their most ingenious cooling technology. Wide-brimmed hats, carefully woven coverings, and specific wrapping techniques weren't just about sun protection. They were mobile shade systems, creating personal cooling zones that moved with the wearer. Layering strategies. Counterintuitively, multiple light layers often provided better cooling than minimal clothing. Each layer created air pockets, allowing heat to escape and creating natural ventilation. It was a dynamic cooling system that adapted to movement and environmental changes. Physiological understanding. This wasn't just clothing, it was a deep understanding of human physiology. They knew how body heat moves, how sweat cools, how air circulation impacts temperature. Their clothing was a testament to a profound understanding of human biology that modern technology is only beginning to comprehend. Modern clothing is about fashion. Native American clothing was about survival. Every thread, every weave, every design choice was a calculated response to the most extreme environmental challenges. They didn't just wear clothes. They engineered personal climate control systems that made 110-degree heat not just bearable, but manageable. Hydration and physiological adaptation. Survival in extreme heat isn't just about staying cool. It's about understanding how the human body functions at its most fundamental level. Native Americans didn't just survive 110-degree temperatures. They mastered human physiological adaptation. Water management. Water wasn't just a drink, it was a survival technology. They developed intricate water storage techniques that went far beyond simple container design. Earthen vessels weren't just containers, they were sophisticated cooling systems. The porous clay would naturally cool water through evaporation, creating a built-in refrigeration method that dropped water temperature by several degrees. Underground water storage was their most brilliant innovation. By storing water deep beneath the ground, they maintained consistent cool temperatures, even in the most brutal heat. These underground chambers weren't just storage, they were natural cooling systems that preserved water quality and temperature. Minimal water consumption strategies. They understood something modern survival experts often miss. It's not about drinking more water, it's about losing less. Their water consumption wasn't about quantity, but strategic intake. They developed techniques to minimize water loss, including specific breathing patterns and movement strategies that reduce perspiration. Dietary adaptations. Food wasn't just nutrition, it was a thermal management system. Certain foods were specifically chosen for their cooling properties. They consumed meals that reduced internal body heat, provided maximum hydration, minimized metabolic heat generation. Specific herbs and plants weren't just ingredients, they were living cooling technologies. Some plants would actually lower body temperature, while others helped regulate hydration and electrolyte balance. Metabolic understanding. Their approach to heat survival went deeper than surface-level strategies. They possessed an intricate understanding of human metabolism, how food converts to energy, how different nutrients impact body temperature, how digestion generates heat. Meal timing became a thermal management strategy. They would eat smaller, more frequent meals during cooler parts of the day, avoiding large meals that generate significant metabolic heat. This wasn't just eating, it was thermal engineering of the human body. Physiological adaptation. Most remarkably, they didn't just survive heat, they adapted to it. Generations of living in extreme conditions created physiological changes that allowed more efficient heat management. Their bodies became living, breathing cooling systems. Modern humans see heat as an enemy to be fought. Native Americans saw it as an environment to be understood, managed, and ultimately mastered. Their approach to hydration and physiological adaptation wasn't just survival. It was a profound understanding of human potential that makes our modern cooling technologies look primitive by comparison. This wasn't just survival. This was human engineering at its most sophisticated. Behavioral strategies. Survival in extreme heat isn't about technology, it's about intelligence. Native Americans didn't just react to heat, they strategically choreographed their entire existence around temperature management. Daily rhythm modification. The most critical survival strategy was simple. Don't fight the heat, outsmart it. They completely redesigned their daily rhythm to minimize heat exposure. Work happened during the coolest hours, early morning and late evening. Midday wasn't for productivity, it was for strategic rest. This wasn't laziness. This was pure survival engineering. By reducing movement during peak heat, they dramatically decreased body temperature and water loss. Every moment of stillness was a calculated cooling strategy. Movement patterns. Movement itself became a thermal management technique. They developed specific walking patterns that minimized energy expenditure. Slow, deliberate movements, minimal arm swinging, controlled breathing. Each step was designed to generate the least possible body heat. Shade utilization. Shade wasn't just a comfort, it was a survival technology. They understood every landscape feature as a potential cooling zone. Rock formations, tree clusters, canyon walls, each became a mobile cooling station. Their movement wasn't random, it was a constant navigation between natural cooling zones. Wind corridor strategies. They didn't just accept wind, they engineered it. Settlement locations were chosen to maximize natural air circulation. They understood how landscape features could create wind tunnels, how terrain could channel cooler air currents. Psychological heat management. Heat survival was as much mental as physical. They developed mental techniques to reduce perceived temperature, meditation practices, specific breathing techniques, mental focus strategies, all designed to lower physiological stress responses that generate internal heat. Community cooling techniques. Survival was a collective strategy. During extreme heat, communities would create shared cooling spaces, share water resources, coordinate movement and rest periods, use collective body knowledge to survive. Clothing interaction. Their behavioral strategies extended to clothing interaction. They knew exactly when to add or remove layers, how to adjust clothing for maximum air circulation, how to use clothing as a mobile cooling system. Modern humans see heat as an obstacle. Native Americans saw it as an environment to be negotiated, managed, strategically navigated. Their behavioral strategies weren't just survival techniques, they were a profound understanding of human potential in extreme conditions. This wasn't just about staying cool. This was human intelligence at its most sophisticated, turning an environment that could kill into a livable, manageable space through pure behavioral engineering. Technological innovations. Primitive doesn't mean unsophisticated. Native American cooling technologies were engineering marvels that modern solutions still struggle to match. Water-based cooling systems. Water wasn't just a resource, it was a sophisticated cooling technology. They created intricate water circulation systems that could drop surrounding temperatures by several degrees. Shallow water channels near living spaces, strategically placed water containers, and complex evaporative cooling techniques transformed water into a living cooling mechanism. Natural fan mechanisms. Before electricity, they engineered wind. Carefully designed structures with specific openings created natural air circulation systems. Entrance designs, wall positioning, and strategic building orientation became complex wind management technologies. These weren't just shelters. They were precision-engineered cooling machines, evaporative cooling techniques. Their most brilliant innovation was understanding evaporation's power. Wet animal skins hung at shelter entrances, strategically placed wet cloths, and specific vegetation arrangements created natural cooling zones. As water evaporated, it would dramatically drop surrounding temperatures. Wind tunnel design. Every settlement was a carefully designed thermal management system. They understood how landscape, building placement, and vegetation could create natural wind corridors. Settlements weren't randomly placed. They were thermal engineering projects that manipulated airflow with surgical precision. Ceramic and clay technologies. Clay wasn't just a material, it was a thermal management technology. Specially designed ceramic vessels could cool water through natural evaporation. Thick clay walls absorbed and released heat slowly, creating natural temperature regulation systems that modern materials struggle to replicate. Natural refrigeration techniques. They developed underground storage techniques that maintain consistent cool temperatures. Deep pit storage, specific underground chamber designs, and strategic use of natural terrain created cooling systems that preserve food and water more effectively than many modern refrigeration methods. Vegetation as cooling technology. Plants were living cooling machines. Specific tree and plant arrangements created shade, managed wind flow, and dropped surrounding temperatures. They didn't just plant vegetation, they engineered living cooling systems. Clothing as technological innovation. Their clothing was a mobile cooling technology. Specific weaves, materials, and design techniques created personal cooling systems that adapted to movement and environmental changes. Each garment was a precisely engineered thermal management device. Modern cooling is a single-purpose technology. Native American cooling innovations were holistic, adaptive systems that transformed entire environments. They didn't just survive heat, they turned it into a manageable, even comfortable experience through pure technological intelligence. This wasn't primitive technology. This was human engineering at its most sophisticated, transforming extreme environments through pure innovative thinking. Conclusion: we've been sold a lie about survival. We think technology saves us. Native Americans proved that intelligence is the ultimate survival tool. In 110-degree heat, they didn't just survive. They transformed an environment that could kill into a livable, even comfortable space. Their cooling strategies weren't just techniques, they were a profound philosophy of human adaptation. Modern air conditioning is a single-purpose technology. Push a button, get cold air. But Native American cooling was a living, breathing survival algorithm. Every strategy, from clothing to shelter, from water management to behavioral adaptation, was an interconnected system of human intelligence. They understood something we've forgotten. Survival isn't about fighting the environment. It's about understanding it, reading it, becoming part of it. Their technologies weren't primitive. They were sophisticated ecological engineering that modern science is only beginning to comprehend. A pit house wasn't just a shelter. It was a thermal management system more precise than any modern HVAC unit. A piece of clothing wasn't just fabric. It was a mobile cooling technology that adapted to every movement, every environmental shift. We look at indigenous knowledge and see history. They saw survival as an art form. The real lesson isn't about how Native Americans survived 110-degree heat. It's about how human intelligence can transform any challenge. How understanding always beats fighting. How survival is about adaptation, not resistance. In a world of complex technologies, they proved that the most sophisticated technology is the human mind. This isn't just a story about staying cool. This is a story about human potential.